Getting up from Eden McBride's bed, he lazily handed me the underwear. I changed the password to the main door. Don't come here unless necessary. I was stunned and asked subconsciously, why? He curled his lips and smiled. She agreed to be my girlfriend yesterday. I was afraid that if she saw me, she would be unhappy, so I chased her for a long time. 1. When I opened my eyes, my whole body ached terribly. Even though I've done this many times, I still can't get used to Eden's animal-like stamina. When I turned around, he was already awake. His beautiful latissimus dorsi was exposed in the sunlight, glowing a light honey color, and his half-open eyes were lazy. Why are you up so early? His voice was still hoarse. The stiff pain in my waist made me frown. I bent down to put on my stockings, but found that yesterday's stockings had been torn to pieces by him and could not be put on at all. Eden turned over, picked up my underwear with his fingertips and handed it to me, with a sly smile in the corner of his eyes. You're so old and still wearing this kind of white lace. Isn't it old-fashioned? Try something new. I took the underwear. Then I'll buy some new underwear. What kind do you like? Eden interrupted me. No need, I'll change the password to the gate in a minute, so don't come here unless necessary. I was stunned. I have been in this relationship with Eden for a year. At the beginning, he would ask me to come over almost every few days. Later, except when I had to work overtime, I almost lived in his house. I usually do the housework for him, and when he gets off work early, we will sit on the sofa together to watch movies and eat popcorn, and then be affectionate before the movie ends. Like a real couple. Gradually, I began to get used to this kind of life. Sometimes I couldn't help but think that maybe Eden had also gotten used to my presence. If we could start a family in the future, we would definitely be very happy. But now he told me not to come again. I subconsciously said, is it your family that is coming? Or are you busy with work recently? Can I? He stood up and looked at me, his thin lips curled up. No, she agreed to be my girlfriend. It took me a while to figure out who the she he was talking about was. I recently heard that Eden is pursuing a girl who just graduated from college. Over the years, there have been many women around him, coming and going, and the longest one lasted only 3 months. I thought it was just another spur-of-the-moment move and didn't take it too seriously. I said dryly, are you serious? Eden smiled. Seriously. She's different from those women before, Cordelia Jenna. You don't know, she's very simple. I don't want her to know about us. She'll be unhappy. I've been chasing her for a long time. The sunlight coming in through the gaps in the curtains is so dazzling. Stings people dizzy. Oh, okay. After half a second, I said calmly, then I'll move all my things out today. There's no need to be so anxious. Eden grabbed a pair of gray furniture trousers and put them on. Didn't you give up your house? Stay for 2 more days and find a place to stay before leaving. I closed my eyes for a moment, and the astringent pain exploded in my eyes, making me feel a little helpless. No, I'll move out today. I don't know why I was in such a hurry. Eden was right, I didn't actually have anywhere to go. But I just wanted to leave here immediately. I felt like all my skin had been peeled off by Eden and exposed to the sun. I was about to be swallowed by shame. I don't have much stuff at Eden's house. Most of the things I bought were pots and pans for him to cook, a 4-piece set for his bed, and some miscellaneous pillows and decorations. The house is decorated in a simple style. He once said helplessly that since I came, there are more and more things in the house. But the things that belong to me can be packed in just one box. When I was about to leave, Eden called me. With his sturdy upper body naked, he leaned against the door and lowered his head to light a cigarette. Cordelia, you're not a child anymore. It's time to find someone to settle down with. He exhaled smoke, a half-smile on his lips. From now on, we'll still be friends. I understood what he meant and nodded. Good. 2. The winter in New York is damp and cold. The temperature is not very low, but the coldness seems to penetrate into the bones. It seemed like it was snowing, and something icy and wet fell on the tip of my nose. I looked up and the sky, which had been clear just a moment ago, seemed to suddenly become cloudy, and countless tiny snowflakes fell with the wind. It hasn't snowed in New York for several years. It seems that I haven't seen snow since Eden and I came to this city. I suddenly remembered the snow in my hometown. In small cities on the northern coast, when winter comes, The moisture in the sea breeze turns into heavy snow like goose feathers, which can fall all night long. When you wake up the next day, the snow is up to your knees and everything around you is white. It's very refreshing, unlike the snow in the south wind, which is lingering and makes people feel uncomfortable. I put my luggage aside and simply sat at the bus stop on the side of the road to call home. My mother answered the phone quickly, excited but also a little cautious. "Cordelia." I breathed in the cold air and rubbed my sore nasal cavity. "Mom, I want to eat the dumplings you made." My mother said happily, "Then I'll go make dumplings for you? Let me check the plane tickets. It's almost Chinese New Year, so it might be hard to buy a plane ticket." I interrupted her. "No need, Mom. I'm going home for the New Year this year." My mother was startled, and there was a hint of joy in her voice. "Real?" "Yeah." I looked up. It seems like the snow has gotten into my eyes. I blinked my wet eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Mom, I'm going back home." That afternoon, I submitted my resignation. My boss tried his best to keep me. "Do you have any salary requirements? Tell me and we can discuss it. The department manager will be transferred next year. You have the best chance of being promoted in our department. It would be a shame if you leave now." I smiled and shook my head. "Thank you, Yvonne, but I want to go home and spend time with my parents. I am a person without any ambitions. I don't have any dreams of becoming a superior person. I just want to live my own life well. I came to New York because of Eden. He wanted to develop in New York, so I followed him and stayed here without hesitation. I thought if I was around him long enough, he would see me. But it turns out that the only thing with feelings is that no matter how hard you try, there is nothing you can do about it." On the way to the hotel, a bookstore on the street was playing music. The female voice sang. I fell in love unconsciously to the point of not daring to take risks. I became your puppet for a year or two, only then did I realize how miserable I was. Love to the point of compromise still has no solution in the end, tying you up and not letting you fly. History keeps repeating itself and makes me so tired. I listened quietly for a while. The first time I met Eden was when I was 17 years old. Now I am 28 years old, and after all these years of compromise for Eden, I will soon be 30. It's time for this 12-year absurdity to end. 3. That night, I dreamed of Eden from my youth for the first time in a long time. 17-year-old Eden transferred to our small county town in his second year of high school. When all the boys were still covered in dust and dirt, he wore a black down jacket, had his hair scattered on his forehead, and had a tall figure. So beautiful, like someone from another world. That afternoon, almost all the girls in the grade ran over and leaned on the window to look at him. After a few days, even the school beauty came to give him love letters. But he ignored everyone and always slept alone at the back of the classroom. He seemed to be uninterested in anything, took nothing in class, didn't listen, and the teacher ignored him. Occasionally, during exams, he would poke me on the back. "Hey, copy your answer." He seemed certain that I would not refuse him. I didn't really reject him. Because of this, many boys disliked him and said he was showing off. There were gangsters looking for trouble with him every 3 to 5 days. During that period, I could see Eden fighting in the alley behind the school almost every day. When I passed by that day, he was leaning in the alley smoking a cigarette, with wounds all over his face. I hesitated for a moment, stopped my bike, took out a Band-Aid from my pocket and handed it to him. "Your face is bleeding." He raised his head and gave me a cold look. "Roll." I thought this person was really annoying at that time. What's so great about that? I don't like him. From then on, no matter how he prodded me for answers, I ignored him. A month later, there were fewer girls visiting Eden, but rumors about him in the class increased. Some people said that the down jacket that Eden had only worn once was from a brand we had never heard of, and it cost more than 30,000 yuan. Some people say that Eden is an illegitimate child and his mother is a mistress. He and his mother were discovered by his father's ex-wife. His father no longer wanted them, and his mother couldn't make it in New York anymore, so she took him back to her hometown. All the looks at Eden, whether admiring, disdainful, or curious, were tinged with a hint of subtlety. That night, when I was walking home from school and passing through the alley, I found Eden lying on the ground. He looked like he had just been in a fierce fight. His finger joints were covered in blood, his handsome face was covered in scars, and blood was flowing from his forehead. I didn't want to bother with him at first, but I saw him lying in the snow with his eyes closed. The snow kept falling and he was almost half buried in the snow, with no trace of blood on his face. I was afraid that he was really dead, so I walked over carefully and touched him. "Eden, are you okay?" He didn't move. I got a little anxious and took out my phone. "Then I'll call 120. Eden then raised his eyelids and frowned. "Why you again?" I was a little unhappy, but I couldn't care less at this time. "You're seriously injured. I'll take you to the hospital. Mind your own business." He sneered and closed his eyes again. I ignored him and called 120. He was wearing very thin clothes, only a black hoodie. I hesitated for a moment, then took off my red down jacket and covered him with it. Eden was stunned for a moment. As he was leaving, he called me. I looked back and saw that red down jacket of mine was bought a few years ago. It was a very old style and looked a bit funny when it covered Eden. His eyes were gloomy. "Don't you know my mother is a mistress?" I got on my bike. "I've heard of it, and then what?" "Then why are you saving me? Your mother is your mother. And you are you." I thought about it. Besides, although being a mistress is not good, it's not a crime punishable by death, right? Eden didn't say anything. Snow fell on his trembling eyelashes. He looked at me steadily. The sound of an ambulance soon sounded, and I waved my hand. "Don't forget to return my down jacket." After that, Eden didn't come to school for a week. The boys who had fought with him were not much better. After Eden's mother came to the school angrily, all of them were expelled. A week later, Eden arrived. He handed me a blue down jacket, turned his head and said, "Your dress is damaged, so I'll give you a new one." I didn't feel there was anything wrong with it, so I accepted it. It was much later that I found out the price of that down jacket. I can buy all the clothes I have ever bought since I was born. What happened next happened naturally. Eden's attitude towards me gradually improved, and I became his only friend in this small town. Before the college entrance examination, Eden suddenly asked me, "Cordelia, do you want to go abroad?" I was stunned. He lowered his head. His ears reddened as he said, "My mom plans to let me go to Australia after the college entrance exam. Do you want to come with me?" I smiled bitterly and said, "Master, how can my family afford to send me abroad? So where are you going?" I thought about it and said, "Los Angeles. I'm afraid I can't adapt to the climate in the South. Los Angeles is also close to my home. When I want to go home, I can just take a train for a few hours." Eden reached out and pulled my woolen hat over my eyes and said nothing more. Later, the teacher asked everyone to write about their ideal school. I thought Eden would write a university in Australia, but he wrote about the same university in Los Angeles as I did. I was surprised. "Eden, aren't you planning to go to Australia?" He lay on the table and said incoherently, "I suddenly feel that Australia is nothing good. Los Angeles is not bad either." But 3 days before the college entrance examination, Eden tore up the note. I asked him, but he just remained silent. That night I found out that Eden's father's original wife and son both died in the same car accident. His father asked his mother to take him back. After the death of one son, his father finally started to care about this only remaining son and said that as long as he stayed in New York, he would give his mother a status and let him inherit the family business. He said he didn't want the old man's money, but his mother cried and slapped him, saying to him, "Why do you think I've suffered all these years? For whom? As long as your father can marry me, your mother will no longer be a mistress, and no one will ever be able to say that you are the son of a mistress." In the summer, the sound of cicadas makes people's heads buzz. Under the shade of the birch tree, Eden lowered his head and didn't look at me. "I'm sorry, Cordelia. I can't go to Los Angeles with you." His voice was still hoarse from crying and his eyes were red. I thought about it, then stood on tiptoe and tapped his head. "It doesn't matter. Then I'll go to New York with you." 5. When I opened my eyes, it was already morning. Maybe it's because of the snow yesterday I have a slight headache. However, my friend's birthday is tonight and I have already bought the gift, so I have to go. I picked up the phone and saw Eden's message first. He sent me a picture of a pair of Snoopy pajamas. I forgot to bring my pajamas. Come get them tonight. Those were the couple pajamas I had secretly bought before, one for him and one for me. Occasionally when he puts it on, I feel a kind of false happiness, as if this person belongs to me for a short second. But now thinking about it, it's really pathetic and ridiculous. I replied with a few words. Throw it away, don't want it anymore. He didn't reply. I rolled over and put my arms over my eyes. After arriving in New York, a lot of things happened to Eden. Then I realized that his mother was not a mistress. It was his mother who was together with his father first, and she gave birth to him because she loved his father. But later his father found a woman of similar family background to marry and abandoned them. After Eden's father married his mother, he continued to have affairs with other women and even wanted to have a few sons. His father had a very hard life. He quarreled with his father every day. Finally, he became severely depressed and jumped off the building and died. After that, his father seemed to have suddenly changed his mind and never looked for women outside again. But the rift between father and son was irreparable, and Eden never returned home after that. He began drinking, speeding, and smoking heavily. He became like other rich second generations, partying every night. He used to be rude to all the girls, but now he has become an experienced veteran in wandering among the girls. That clean Eden seemed to have become a bubble. It's just a dream in my memory. 6. That night at a friend's party, I met Eden's new girlfriend for the first time. A fair-skinned girl wearing a camel coat, with long chestnut curly hair wrapped in a cashmere scarf. Her eyes are curved when she smiles, and she looks very peaceful. Not too stunning but very pure. Eden is right. She is really different from his previous girlfriends. You are Cordelia, right? She jumped over and held my hand and smiled. Eden always talked about you to me. He is such a liar. He even said you are not pretty, even though you are so pretty. We are all women, and I can easily see the hostility in her eyes. It seems that women's sixth sense is really accurate. She must have known that Eden and I have a special relationship. I was about to speak when Eden interrupted me. He held the girl's hand and said, "Jane, your sister-in-law." Others started to cheer. This is the first sister-in-law that Brother Eden brought out. It seems like she's a real sister-in-law this time. Sister-in-law is really amazing. There are so many women who like our Brother Eden over the years, and no one has ever been able to take him down. When is the wedding banquet? I will definitely give you a big red envelope. Jane blushed and leaned against Eden, smiling without saying a word. Eden stopped her. "Come on, Jane is timid, don't scare her." Friends laughed and said, "You're protecting me now? I'm going to eat this dog food today." We found a seat and sat down. In the past, Eden always sat next to me on such occasions, but this time, probably because he was used to it, he sat directly on my left. I was about to remind him when Jane walked up to me. She pursed her lips and mustered up the courage to say, "Sister Cordelia, could you please change places? After all, you are still single, so it's better to avoid suspicion with men who have girlfriends. What do you think?" I frowned. It was clearly me who sat down first, but now they want me to move. What's the logic? Eden pushed me. "Don't make your sister-in-law angry, Cordelia. Just go somewhere else." I glanced at him, then stood up and sat opposite them. It was a lively night and I don't know how much wine was drunk. While eating, Jane pushed Eden and said, "Eden, I want to eat that fish." Eden said subconsciously, "Aren't you allergic to fish?" Jane became quiet and my chopstick stopped moving. After a long time, Jane said with an unpleasant look on her face, "Eden, I'm not allergic to fish." Eden paused for a moment. "Really? Maybe I remembered it wrongly." Jane stared at him. "Who's allergic to fish?" Eden said nonchalantly, "I forgot. I was drunk." Jane glanced at me with a gloomy look on her face. Then she put a piece of fish on my plate and looked at me with her big eyes. "Sister Cordelia, this fish is well cooked, try it." The friend next to him didn't notice what happened just now, and said drunkenly, "Sister-in-law, you don't know that Cordelia can't eat fish. She's allergic to fish." Jane said calmly, "Oh really?" After 3 rounds of drinks, everyone was a little drunk. One of the friends blushed and said, "Brother Eden, we all made a bet on whether you could settle down before you turn 30, but we didn't expect you to find true love so soon." Another friend was also drunk, squinting his eyes and grinning. "Yeah, we all thought you and Cordelia were so good together. You two would be together." Jane's face looked so ugly that water could drip out of it. Eden suddenly curled his lips. Really? How can we be together? We are best friends, it's funny. He actually laughed as he spoke, as if this were some very funny joke. Friends also laughed and said, "That's right, now we know that you two are just that. Pure friends of the opposite sex, ha ha ha." I laughed too. Exactly. Why am I with Eden? This is ridiculous. Eden came over and hooked her arm around my shoulders. He was probably drunk, his face was flushed, his eyes were full of water, and he tilted his head and said, "Cordelia, you don't really like me, do you?" At that moment I wanted to see something in his eyes. But there was nothing. He just looked at me straight, as if we were really just the good friends he said we were. The corners of my mouth raised. How is that possible? That's good. Eden nodded and shook my shoulder. We are best friends. I obviously drank so much, but I have never felt so sober before. I repeated, "Yeah, best friend." 7. The next morning I bought a direct flight home. Before boarding the plane, I took one last look at my phone. Eden posted a new circle of friends. It was with Jane. There was no text, just two hands interlocked. This is an official announcement. Below are all blessings from friends. I looked at it for a while, pulled out the SIM card and threw it into the trash can. Going home seems to be easier than imagined. My parents drove to pick me up. It was near the end of the year, and the streets and alleys were filled with red lanterns, and the shops were playing Gong Xi Fa Kai, sung by Andy Lau. It's not as prosperous as New York here, but the lingering smell of fireworks and firecrackers around me suddenly made me feel at ease. My mother was very happy because I hadn't been home for the New Year for 3 years because I had to spend the New Year with Eden. After being happy for a while, she couldn't help but nagging. "You're almost 30 this year. Why haven't you made any progress yet? The daughter of your Uncle Smith next door is 1 year younger than you. Her child is already old enough to play with soy sauce. Oh, I went to see her the other day. She was so chubby and looked so pitiful. All the girls at my mom's workplace are going on blind dates. By the way, there's a young man next door who recently moved in. He's very handsome. I'll introduce you to him when the time comes." My mother looked at my face as she spoke. I used to be very averse to blind dates, but in the past few years since I've liked Eden, I've been completely devoted to him. After that drunken sex incident that caused our relationship to go into chaos, I thought I had my chance and he was the only one in my eyes. Therefore, every time my mother mentioned blind dates and marriage, I got annoyed and refused to listen to a word. However, this time when I looked at the red confetti flying outside the window due to firecrackers, I suddenly felt very tired. I'm tired. Settling down is actually not a bad thing. I said, "Okay. Don't be so resistant. Mom knows you like that, Eden, but what did you say?" I lowered my eyelashes. I said, "Okay, please introduce us to each other." 8. After dinner that night, I picked up my phone as usual, but received a WeChat call from Eden. I have switched to a new WeChat account, but I still have many friends on the old WeChat account, so I will log in again in the next few days. He seemed to have completely forgotten what happened in the past few days, and said naturally, "Why can't I get through to you on the phone?" Before I could say anything, he continued, "Forget it, I've already prepared everything for the new year. If you want anything else, I'll ask my assistant to buy it." I suddenly remembered the year when Eden's mother passed away. I went back to my hometown for the Chinese New Year that year. On New Year's Eve, I made a video call to Eden to wish him a Happy New Year in advance. The video took a long time to be connected. The screen was pitch black and only a scarlet-orange light could be seen slowly dimming. Eden's voice was hoarse. "What?" The screen adjusted to the light, and I realized that Eden was sitting alone on the balcony, surrounded by scattered wine bottles and cigarette butts. Outside the window were thousands of lights and brilliant fireworks, but it seemed as if all that excitement had nothing to do with him. He just sat on the windowsill alone, looking at the perfection that belonged to someone else, smoking alone in the night. At that moment, I suddenly felt very sorry for him. My eyes were filled with sadness, and I tried hard to hold back my smile. "I wish you a Happy New Year in advance. Do you have any red envelopes?" He seemed to chuckle, and then the transfer reminder sounded. He transferred 100,000 yuan to me. I was stunned for a long time, and Eden suddenly whispered, "Cordelia, please come back soon, I'm very..." His voice was blown away by the wind and I didn't hear the last few words. I don't know if he meant, "I'm lonely" or "I miss you very much." I didn't care about anything else, and hurriedly told my parents that there was an emergency at the company, and bought the next flight back to New York. At 3 o'clock in the morning, New York is still very lively, with bright lights and a constant stream of vehicles everywhere. All the lights in Eden's house were off. I went upstairs breathlessly and knocked on the door. "Eden, open the door." I thought Eden had fallen asleep, but I didn't expect him to open the door so soon. He looked straight at me and his whole body looked stunned. "You?" He stood there in a daze. "Why are you back?" I smiled with my eyes curved. "I'll come and spend the new year with you." Eden didn't say anything, just stared at me. Just when I was almost embarrassed by his stare, he suddenly hugged me. So hard, as if he wanted to press me into his body. Since then, I would accompany Eden during the Chinese New Year, and then go home every year. It seemed to have become an unspoken habit between us. But I didn't expect that even though he already had Jane by his side this year, he would still ask me to spend the new year with him. I glanced out the window and whispered, "I'm back home." Eden was stunned. He didn't seem to expect me to say that. After a while, he said, "Oh," and pretended to be natural. "That's right. I haven't been home for the new year in so many years. It's only right for me to go back and visit." "Yeah." I held the phone. There was silence on both ends of the line, and I could vaguely hear Jane's voice. "Eden, come here quickly. How do I adjust the hot water?" "Coming," Eden replied. "Then I'm hanging up." I pursed my lips. There was no emotion in Eden's voice. I took the phone from my ear and hung up. The screen went dark. 9. I thought I wouldn't be able to sleep, but I didn't expect that I would fall asleep as soon as I touched the pillow that night. When I woke up, it was already past 2 a.m. I was woken up by thirst. The winter in the north is dry and cold, and I was not quite used to it after just returning. I went downstairs to drink a glass of water, but just as I was about to go upstairs, I suddenly heard a slight noise coming from the bathroom. "There's a thief in the house." My whole body was tense and my hair stood on end. My heart skipped a beat and I dared not breathe. After a pause, I tentatively stepped on the ground with my bare feet. "The cell phone is upstairs. I have to go upstairs and call the police." But just as I was about to reach the stairs next to the bathroom door suddenly opened. I was so scared that my scalp almost exploded. I subconsciously picked up an umbrella next to me and hit the man on the head, but the man grabbed the umbrella and when I was about to scream, he suddenly pulled me over and covered my mouth. I realized later that the thief was not wearing any clothes. The exposed back of my suspenders was directly pressed against his naked upper body, with a faint scent of verbena mixed with water vapor. Damn, not only did this thief break into our house, he was also naked. I was afraid that he would suffocate me to death, so I turned my head and bit his forearm, then struggled frantically. However, the man was too strong and held me tightly. When I realized I couldn't struggle anymore, I immediately became scared. I was shocked, angry, and scared, fearing that he would kill me to silence me if I found out, and my parents were still upstairs. I pleaded with a trembling voice, "Please spare my life. There is my father's private money in the cabinet next to the windowsill. I estimate there is about 2,000 yuan. If you think it's not enough, I can transfer it to you via WeChat, but I don't have much money. I only have tens of thousands of yuan on hand. If you let me go and take the money, we will pretend that this never happened. I haven't seen you today. I'm still young and have never been in a relationship or married. I don't want to die, please." I heard a chuckle and then the living room light was turned on. After getting used to the dazzling white light, I saw a young man standing in front of me with his upper body naked. Tiny drops of water flowed down his beautiful and strong muscles to the muscles on the sides of his waist, and then fell to the ground. He was very tall, a head taller than me, probably at least 188 centimeters tall. I looked like a quail standing in front of him. I stared at him for a while and said in a complicated tone, "Brother, with your face, you can earn 30,000 to 50,000 yuan a night. Why are you so desperate to come and steal from my house? My family is very poor." The man's thin cherry-colored lips curved slightly, and only then did I realize that his voice was actually very nice. "You are Aunt Jenna's daughter, right? I'm the tenant next door. The water heater over there is broken. So Aunt Jenna asked me to come here to take a shower. I'm sorry if I scared you. I was confused for a moment. Then I remembered that my mother seemed to say on the way that the house next door was rented out. My family originally bought 2 adjacent small buildings by the sea. Although houses in a small county town are not worth much, the scenery is beautiful and the balcony faces the sea directly. In recent years, the tourism industry has gradually developed, and people have come to rent houses one after another. I was so embarrassed that I wanted to find a hole to crawl into, and said with a red face, "I'm sorry, The man waved his hands. "It's my fault." I was also startled just now. There was a round tooth mark on his forearm, which had already started to bleed. I was mortified. "I'm so sorry. I'll go get you some iodine to disinfect it." Before I came back, I never expected that I would be sitting on the sofa in my house with a strange man on my first night home. Almost head to head. I pressed cotton balls on his wound and found out that his name was Carlo Mavros, a painter who had recently come to our place to collect folk songs. "It seems to be quite deep." I stared at his wound and frowned. "Do you need to get a tetanus shot?" Carlo touched his chin and said seriously, "I think I need to get a rabies shot." I slowly realized that he was scolding me, and I couldn't help but glare at him, but I felt unjustified because I was in the wrong. Carlo smiled. "You know what, your teeth marks are quite round and beautiful." 10. My mother liked Carlo very much and always invited him to dinner at home. She winked at me secretly. "Carlo is a nice guy. He often helps me and your dad with work. Look at him, he's so handsome. If you two get married and have a child, he's sure to look like." I said helplessly, "Mom, that's enough." It's not that I look down on Carlo, it's just that I saw him wearing a coat once. I have seen Eden wearing that coat that he casually threw on the back of the sofa in my house. A coat made by a century-old family in Italy that is handmade costs at least 6 figures. This is also a young master, and he is not from the same world as me. However, Carlo is really good at pleasing middle-aged and elderly people, calling them auntie and uncle all the time. Since he came, he has been the one carrying the big buckets of water in the house. Even my dad, who is so picky, can't help but praise him. Even on Chinese New Year's Day, my mother called him over to have the New Year's Eve dinner together. I secretly complained to my mother. "Why did you call him here?" My mother said to me, "Carlo is so pitiful here alone. Can you bear to see him alone and unable to even eat dumplings?" I was helpless and watched Carlo sitting at the table, his peach blossom eyes sparkling with a smile. "Auntie, the dumplings you make are so delicious." My mother's mouth was almost popping out as she kept picking dumplings for him. "If it tastes good, eat more." As the conversation got longer, my mother couldn't help but start talking about the same old things again. She glanced at me and sighed. "Cordelia, when can you bring a man back to Mom? Carlo is still here, and I feel a little embarrassed." "Mom, what are you talking about?" Carlo looked at me and said, "Cordelia is so beautiful. There must be many people chasing after her. Don't worry, Auntie." My mother curled her lips and said, "Why should I worry? This child looks like me. She has been pretty since she was young. I will show you her childhood photos later." I couldn't help it. "Mom!" Carlo raised his lips and said, "Okay." After dinner, my mother actually took out the photo album and looked at it with Carlo. This is her when she was 100 days old. She was chubby and so cute. Look at how fair Cordelia was when she was little with big eyes. The neighbors loved her and said she looked like a doll. This is an elementary school performance. Oh, the big blush on my face. It's so funny. My mom was called away by my dad before she finished reading. I walked over and said a little embarrassedly, "My mom is like this, don't mind it. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it." Carlo raised his head, his clear eyes showing a smile. "No problem. Auntie is right. You were really cute when you were a child." I stood there in a daze. 11. After watching the Spring Festival Gala, the sound of firecrackers outside was still lingering. Fireworks are not banned in this small county town. All kinds of colorful fireworks are flying everywhere. Although they look like cheap stuff, they are just as gorgeous when they bloom in the sky. I stood on the balcony with a bottle of beer, but I couldn't help but think of my friend's words. She said that Eden was going to take Jane to the Cheval Blanc estate in the Maldives for a vacation, and her words were filled with regret. You've been with him for so long, how come you haven't conquered him? If you really wanted to be with him, you would have to fight for dozens of lifetimes less. I smiled helplessly. How mean. He must be a sweet couple now. I'm afraid he won't need me to accompany him during the new year anymore. It was as if his life no longer needed me. My friends also called me a bitch when they found out about my messy relationship with Eden. I know it's pretty cheap. He never mentioned that he liked me, but I always followed him vaguely. I love him so much. I can't bear to lose him. Even though this self-deceiving intimacy makes me feel like I own him. But those false joys are like the fireworks in the sky, which are extinguished in a flash. Do you mind? My thoughts were interrupted and I turned around. Carlo had a cigarette in the corner of his mouth and tilted his head towards me. After I shook my head, he walked over, lit the cigarette with both hands and took a deep puff. I made small talk. Is it okay for you to spend the new year here by yourself? Where are your parents? Carlo exhaled smoke and said lightly, they are far away. I wanted to slap myself and apologize quickly. I'm sorry. Carlo glanced at me, a smile in his eyes. They are on a cruise to Antarctica. I shut my mouth and felt like an idiot. Carlo couldn't help laughing. The smoke choked his throat. He coughed a few times, then picked up the beer next to me and took a sip. I said dryly, I drank it. He took an unopened bottle of beer and handed it to me, but held my bottle himself and said naturally, what do we usually do in winter here? I was distracted by his topic and thought for a while. There's nothing to do here. It's too cold in the winter. Well, we can go to the movies. Carlo nodded slightly to indicate that he understood. I broke the silence and asked curiously, why are you here? Collecting the wind. Carlo squinted his eyes and looked into the distance. Don't you think the winter here is particularly beautiful? That's right. Then when are you leaving? Carlo did not answer this question immediately. After a while, he put out his cigarette on the can, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised. I was originally planning to leave in the spring, but now I suddenly want to stay a little longer. Why? Because. My cell phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I gestured to Carlo, and he tactfully left the balcony. Hello. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a long time, and then Eden's voice came out. Cordelia. Did you change your phone number? 12. I wanted to cut off all contact with Eden, so I only told 2 close friends about changing my phone number. I no longer use WeChat and plan to log out after I sort out my interpersonal relationships. But it was too easy for Eden to find someone. I thought our separation was a tacit understanding between both of us, but I didn't expect that he would come to me again. I said vaguely, yeah. Eden paused for a moment and said in a deep voice, when do you come back? I'll pick you up. Fireworks exploded in the distance, and the fleeting brilliance left only embers in the sky a second later. I took a deep breath of cool air and felt my throat tighten. Eden, I whispered, I'm not going back. There was no movement for a long time. After a few seconds, Eden's voice was emotionless. Not coming back? What do you mean? I opened the beer and the white instant noodles spilled out. I just won't go back to New York. I held the can, feeling the coldness spreading through my palms into my body. My heart began to throb with dull pain, but it seemed a little numb because of the alcohol. I plan to stay in my hometown, Eden. You're right. I'm not young anymore. It's time for me to find someone to settle down with. The only sound on the phone was breathing. I was silent for a while and then said, I'm hanging up now. If you have nothing to do in the future, don't look for me anymore. I was about to hang up when Eden suddenly raised his voice. Cordelia. What the hell do you mean? Just tell me clearly. Carlo suddenly opened the balcony door. Beer anymore? Eden was stunned, then asked. Cordelia, who are you with? I didn't want to talk to him anymore, so I hung up the phone and blocked the number. Sorry, did I disturb you? Carlo leaned closer again. I shook my head. No. Boyfriend. He seemed to suddenly become gossipy. No. I took a sip of beer. The cold liquid rushed down my esophagus and I couldn't help but shiver from the cold. A coat with body temperature was suddenly put on me. I tilted my head. Carlo said naturally, don't get cold. I forgot what time Carlo and I drank that night. My parents didn't pay any attention to us, and we just sat on the balcony drinking and chatting. When I woke up, I was already lying on the bed in the bedroom. I went downstairs sleepily, only to find Carlo already dressed and sitting at the dining table, peeling garlic and chatting with my mom. I can't help but sigh. Some people's hands look like posters even when they are peeling garlic. No wonder they are painters. How can their aesthetic level not be high when they look at their own faces every day? My mother frowned and taught me. It's so late and you're still not up. Today is the first day of the Chinese New Year and Carlo has already come to pay his respects. I glared at Carlo. We had a drink together yesterday. Why are you dragging me down like this today? My mother noticed Carlo rolling up his sleeves to reveal the wound on his forearm and exclaimed, "Ouch, what bit me? There's such a big tooth mark." I stopped. Carlo smiled faintly. "Oh, a curly-haired puppy. No matter what kind of straight-haired or curly-haired dog it is, they all need to be vaccinated. Have you been vaccinated?" "Yeah, the ant who beat me." I gritted my teeth secretly. My mother continued to chatter. "You young people are bored staying at home. Go out more often. Don't underestimate our small place. There are many beautiful places here." Carlo lowered his long eyelashes somewhat dejectedly. "Auntie, I don't have many friends here, and I don't know where to go." My mother was so distressed that she pointed at me and said, "She's idle at home all day. Let her go out and hang out with you." Carlo smiled contentedly. "Hey, thank you, Auntie." I rolled my eyes. This guy Carlo looks like a beautiful lady from a high mountain, but unexpectedly he is actually a green tea girl. Teen. The next morning, I packed up quickly and planned to go out with Carlo after dinner. My mother was still busy in the kitchen when there was a knock on the door. It must be Carlo coming here to eat for free again. I went to open the door angrily. "You're here to eat for free again." My voice caught in my throat and my eyes widened. The person standing outside the door is Eden. He was wearing a black coat, with a layer of snow on his shoulders. He blinked, and the melted snow wet his eyelashes. "You," I stammered. "What are you doing here?" "I came to wish my uncle and aunt a happy new year. You have been receiving red envelopes from me for so many years, so it's time for me to get one. Right?" My mother came out of the kitchen holding a spatula and said excitedly, "Carlo is here? Auntie made your favorite pork buns." She looked at Eden in surprise. Eden nodded to my mother. "Happy New Year, Auntie. I'm Eden, Cordelia's friend." As he said this, he put the bags in his hands in the living room and said politely, "I hope you don't mind my visit, Uncle and Aunt." I took a look at the bags. Various expensive supplements and an Hermes bag. Even if I emptied my parents' wallets, they still couldn't come up with that much money in a red envelope. My mother put down the spatula and said, "I don't mind that dash." She racked her brains to think of a topic. "Eden, have you eaten yet? If not, let's eat together." I thought Eden would refuse. After all, when had a rich young man like him ever had a meal in my house? Eden nodded and said obediently, "I haven't eaten yet." "Thank you, Auntie." I stared at him secretly and felt that he seemed to be having a mental illness. My parents were polite yet a little distant in response to Eden's arrival. My parents are not fools. They know who is responsible for my wasting all these years. Actually, it's not Eden's fault that he doesn't like me. But of course my parents think that their daughter is perfect and that others who look down on her are just short-sighted. So they always give him the cold shoulder. After a while, the doorbell rang again. My mother went to open the door, and Carlo came in carrying a watermelon. "Auntie, I just saw someone selling watermelons, so I bought one." My mother's expression changed immediately, and she smiled and said, "Oh, come now, why bring anything? Watermelons are so expensive in this winter. This kid is wasting money." "Not expensive. Auntie, did you make braised pork buns this morning? I can smell the fragrance." "Yes." My mother quickly got Carlo a pair of slippers. "You can eat as much of your favorite food as you want today." Yes, Carlo already has his own pair of slippers in my house. I guess if I had returned home half a year later, my parents would have become his too. The dining room suddenly became lively. Carlo and my mother were chatting about family matters, while Eden was silent and didn't eat anything. I really don't understand Carlo, such a rich, handsome guy and a painter. Logically, he should be very cool. How could a middle-aged woman like this, From the south where Aunt Jenna's daughter married a yellow-haired guy and had a child before marriage, which almost pissed Aunt Jenna off to death. And then to the east where Uncle Justin lost his integrity in his later years and had an affair with the nanny, and wanted to kick his wife out of the house. What the hell is going on? Until Carlo asked me, Cordelia, where are we going today? Eden suddenly put down his chopsticks, looked at Carlo and said coldly, Excuse me, who are you? This question was quite rude, but Carlo didn't get angry. He smiled and said, Oh, I'm the one who lives in this house. Eden's face darkened. This meal made me feel very uncomfortable. After the meal, I immediately dragged Eden upstairs. What on earth are you doing here? I frowned. Shouldn't you be in the Maldives with Jane? Eden turned her head away. I suddenly don't want to go. He got a little angry and asked me, Cordelia, why did you suddenly return home? Is it because you don't have enough money in New York? Don't have a house? Or don't have a car? I'll give you money, a house, a car, I have everything. I'll give it all to you when you come back. My eyes fell on Eden's face. The arrogance in his eyes was too sharp. He should have looked a little mean. However, this face is so handsome that the slight harshness becomes a sign of lofty and romantic spirit. After so many years, he hasn't changed much. I pursed my lips and smiled bitterly. Eden, what do you want me to go back for? He was stunned. There's nothing left for me in New York. And me? You're just going to abandon me like that? We've been together for so many years. Eden lowered his brows, looking a little annoyed. I interrupted him. You already have Jane, don't you? Eden, I looked up at him seriously. I can't spend my whole life around you. I have my own life too. I'm not young anymore. It's time for me to find someone to settle down with. Isn't that what you said? Eden stared at me. Carlo called me from outside. Cordelia, are you ready? The car is here. As I was about to leave the house, Eden grabbed me. He grabbed me so hard that my wrist hurt. Who is he? He looked gloomy. My tenant. Tenant? Eden sneered. I think your parents are going to take him as their son-in-law, right? Cordelia, you're going back home just for him. I said impatiently. Whatever you think, get out of here, I'm leaving. Eden pushed me against the wall and pinched my cheek fiercely with one hand. His eyes were filled with anger and he said without thinking, Why have you slept together? Does he make you feel better than me? Pa! Eden turned her head away. This slap was done with full force, and the corner of Eden's mouth cracked, with blood slowly seeping out. He wiped it with his thumb, smiled instead of getting angry, and held my hand against his other cheek. Are you relieved? If not, hit me here too. I was so anxious that my eyes turned red and I couldn't control my tears. Eden, what on earth do you want to do? The tears fell on his arm as if burning him. Eden suddenly came back to his senses and helplessly wiped away my tears. I'm an asshole. I said the wrong thing. Cordelia, don't cry. At that moment, the grievances that had accumulated for so long suddenly burst out. I couldn't hold it in any longer, so I squatted on the ground, buried my hands in my arms and sobbed. Eden coaxed me in a panic. I'm sorry, Cordelia. I was so angry. Go ahead and hit me. He pulled me up and rubbed my face. Don't cry, go ahead and hit me. I cried even louder, shaking with anger, and pointed at the door. Get out. Eden, you make me sick, get out. This was the first time I hit Eden and the first time I scolded him. Eden stood there in a daze, a look of confusion on his face. Just then his cell phone rang. After picking it up, Jane's voice came out. Eden, where have you been? My stomach suddenly hurt so much. I'm in the hospital now, can you come back and stay with me? Eden said nothing and hung up the phone. After a long time, he suddenly whispered, Cordelia, if you let me stay, I won't leave. I wiped away my tears and said calmly, You go, Eden. Don't come to me again. Eden looked at me one last time, his eyes dark. Well, he said, Cordelia, don't regret it. Then he slammed the door and left. 14. I don't know why Eden did this. After thinking about it, I guess it was because I had been around him all the time and suddenly left, so he felt a little uncomfortable. Maybe in his eyes, even if he doesn't like me, I should always follow him and stick with him. But given Eden's proud personality, he will definitely not come again after being scolded by me. I wiped away my tears, feeling complicated and empty inside with nothing left. In the end, I didn't get to go out with Carlo that day. When I went to explain to him with red eyes, Carlo said nothing, but just reached out and touched my head. Finally, he came again that night. My parents went out to visit relatives. When I opened the door, Carlo had a pair of white lace panties hanging from his slender fingers. Be mine. My face flushed. I grabbed the underwear and held it in my hand, lowering my voice and saying, "Where are you from?" Carlo looked innocent. "It blew over from your balcony. I was collecting wind in the yard and it fell on my head." My head was boiling and I was stuttering, not knowing what to say. Carlo just kept laughing. He looked at the underwear in my hand. That smile looked so annoying that I couldn't even say thank you to him. "What are you laughing at?" I glared at him fiercely. "Are you trying to say that wearing white lace at your age is too old-fashioned?" Carlo smiled and said, "How come? She's so cute." I lowered my head and suddenly felt my heart skip a beat. "Have a good rest tonight," Carlo said, thrusting a can into my hand. "I'll pick you up tomorrow." He closed the door and left. I looked down and saw a bottle of hot milk. On a cold winter day, the warmth flows up through the palm of your hand. I reached out and touched my heart. Seems like there's something swelling there. 15. Carlo and I didn't get to see the movie after all. The movie was at 6 o'clock in the evening. Because it was snowing so heavily, I couldn't get a taxi and his own car didn't come, so I asked him to wait for the last bus. It turned out that this young man had probably never taken the bus before. After asking and finding out that the last bus was at about 6 o'clock, he confidently took me out. As a result, when we arrived at the bus stop, the bus had already left and we chased it for a long time, but it didn't stop. I was so angry that a movie ticket worth 80 yuan was wasted. There's nothing I can do. I've already put on my makeup, so I might as well go for a walk on the beach. The seaside is beautiful in winter. The whole world seems to be covered with a layer of cold light blue filter. The streets are all white with blue signboards stuck in the snow. Occasionally, young couples wrapped tightly together talk and laugh. On the narrow streets, the headlights of the cars turned the falling snowflakes into warm yellow. Carlo and I walked on the beach chatting casually. I have checked these days and found out that Carlo is actually a very famous and talented painter in the industry, and one of his paintings costs at least 6 figures. Even before, one of his paintings was auctioned in Hong Kong for more than 3 million. "What have you been drawing lately? I've never seen you drawing before." Carlo looked down at me. "I won't tell you. If you don't want to tell me, then don't tell me. Do you think I want to know? You are really pretentious." I rolled my eyes. The cold and damp sea breeze penetrates into the gaps between my bones. After staying in the south for a long time, I am a little uncomfortable with such cold weather. I rubbed my hands and breathed out. Carlo said in a mean voice, "I told you to wear more clothes, but you were just vain. Are you cold?" I glanced at him and said, "A normal man would take off his clothes and let a woman wear them. Are you a man?" Actually, I don't usually talk like this. My friends all say that I have a good temper, but I don't know why, when I'm with Carlo, I can't help but argue with him. Carlo raised his eyebrows. "But I'm only wearing a down jacket. Won't I be cold if I give it to you?" Dogman. Before I thought he was knowledgeable and interesting, but now it seems that I was wrong. I walked forward angrily. It would have been fine if I wasn't allowed to wear it, but I was generating heat from exercise. But Carlo grabbed me. His low laugh sounded above my head. "I can't give it to you, but I can give you half." As he said that, he unzipped his clothes and pulled me into his arms and wrapped me up. The faint scent of verbena surrounded me. I leaned against his chest in a daze, and then I heard his pounding heartbeat, beating a drum generally. I don't know if it's mine or his. He felt warm, the chill gone. We just stood there quietly on the beach, leaning against each other, and no one spoke first. I don't know when the snow stopped. The clouds in the night sky dispersed, revealing a few tiny stars. One of them was particularly bright. Carlo looked up for a moment. "Cordelia, have you seen The Princess and the Frog?" My mind went blank. What? There was a firefly in there, and it had always liked a star, so it named the star Evangeline. I nodded blankly. Well, then what? The waves on the shore have frozen, gradually spreading out in white, and the waves that keep pushing up from behind are piled up with snowflakes. Cordelia. Carlo called me suddenly. I looked up and Carlo looked at me deeply. There was a gleam in his eyes, gentle and affectionate, and he slowly leaned down. I didn't hide. A cool kiss fell on my lips. 16. Sitting on the plane back to New York, I couldn't help but smile bitterly at the window. I just said I wouldn't come back, and now I'm back. It's just that my friend's wedding is the most important event in life, so I have to come no matter what. Carlo insisted on coming with me, but after that kiss I was so confused that I refused him. He looked very unhappy, and stared at me at the airport when I left. Cordelia, if you don't come back, I'll go to New York to find you. I nodded. Back tomorrow. As soon as I put the red envelope into the box and sat down in the banquet hall, I felt a pair of eyes falling on me. Eden naturally pulled the chair next to me and sat down. Jane frowned when she saw me, but still smiled and said to me, "Sister Cordelia, I heard you went back to your hometown. Why are you back again? Come back for the wedding, then go back." Jane breathed a sigh of relief and smiled a little wider. "Is that so? That's a shame. You must come to Eden and I's wedding then." I was too lazy to play witty tricks with her, so I just said perfunctorily, "Yes, if you have time." During the meal, Eden showed his affection for Jane in some way. He picked up food for Jane and blocked her wine from her. The two of them leaned against each other, looking sticky and affectionate. In the past I would have felt bad, but at this moment all I could think about was Carlo's kiss. What does he mean? Does he like me? What should I do then? Do I like him? Eden and his wife were showing more affection. Jane was smiling at first, but her expression suddenly changed when Eden picked up a piece of beef for her. She said stiffly, "Eden, I'm allergic to beef, did you forget?" Eden stopped and was about to speak when there was a sudden commotion nearby. The next table was for family members. The man's family was not happy that the woman had bought a house before marriage, and they were drunk and yelled, "Your family is plotting against us." The woman's relatives were also unhappy. "We agreed to jointly pay for the down payment to buy a house, but your family secretly bought the house and left my family to pay for the renovation. How can this be justified?" The man's uncle drunkenly pointed at her nose and cursed. "What's wrong with the decoration? Do you think your daughter is embarrassed to move in with just a bag? Are you selling your daughter?" The girl's family also stood up and said, "What do you mean by selling my daughter? You secretly changed your mind about what we agreed on. Everyone knows that a house can appreciate in value, while renovations can only depreciate. Do you think that only your family is sophisticated and everyone else is stupid?" The two families were arguing with each other, and neither would give in. No matter how the bride and groom tried to stop them, they refused to stop. It was unknown who started the fight first, and for a moment the whole place was in chaos, with bowls and plates flying everywhere. In the chaos, several wine bottles were thrown towards our table. Eden stood up suddenly and stood in front of me. A wine bottle hit Jane on the head. After a crisp sound, blood oozed from Jane's head. Eden didn't notice it, and pushed the bottle in front of me away and said nervously, "Cordelia, are you okay?" Jane's hair mixed with blood was stained on her forehead. She stood there, staring blankly at Eden, who blocked me behind him. Eden then noticed the wound on her head, opened her mouth to say something, then fell silent again. Jane's eyes gradually turned red. I had a bad feeling, so I stood up, picked up my bag and was about to leave. I can understand Jane's hostility towards me, but I have given up on Eden and really don't want to get between them. "I'm going to go back now," I said hurriedly. "Thank you for what you did just now," etc. Eden subconsciously wanted to chase me. Jane said in tears behind him, "Eden, if you dare to chase her, we will break up." Eden slowly stopped. After a moment, he looked back at Jane. There was no sadness on his face, but a hint of relief. "Okay," he said. Jane opened her eyes wide. After a long time, she stared at Eden, tears falling from her eyes. "Eden," she raised her chin slightly, her eyes filled with grief and hatred. "You've gone too far." Then he ran out in a panic without looking back. 17. Walking out of the hotel, I lowered my head and asked, "Why?" Eden said nothing. After a long time, he suddenly stopped and laughed at himself. "Because I fucking like you, okay? Cordelia, I get it. I finally fucking get it. I'm the idiot." He closed his eyes and his body became less straight, as if a stretched string had finally broken, or as if the stone pressing on his body had finally been removed. We are together. I know you like me. From now on, I will give you everything you want from me. I will never be with anyone else. Come back, Cordelia. I looked at him for a while and couldn't help thinking how happy I would have been if he had said this a few months ago. I have liked him for so many years. In the past 10 years I have been tired, cried, and felt sad. But I never gave up my love for him for a moment. I finally got what I had always dreamed of. Eden responded to my feelings. But I just felt it was ridiculous in my heart, and an indescribable fatigue came up. I shook my head. No. Eden grabbed my shoulders, frowned, and a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes. Why? Cordelia, how dare you say you don't like me? I looked up into his eyes. The person I have loved for 10 years has grown from a boy into a man. His appearance has obviously not changed much, but I feel that things change and everything seems to have changed. For the first time, I realized clearly that we could never go back to the way we were before. No one will wait for you here forever. I said calmly. Eden, liking you is too hard, too hard. I'm tired and don't want to like you anymore. A sparse wetness fell on me. It's raining. The rain gradually got heavier. Cars kept flowing in the rain, the neon lights were bizarre, and the colors were like a dream. Eden's eyes were fixed on me, raindrops fell into his eyes, and the spark slowly went out. He slowly opened his lips and said in a trembling voice, Cordelia, don't do this. Give me another chance, I beg you. Eden is a very proud man. In all the years I've been with him, I've never seen him be so humble. He said, beg me. But who should I turn to for help when I loved him so much, and it was so painful all those years? I suddenly realized that love is not something that will disappear gradually, but at a certain moment it suddenly disappeared. The fire that almost burned me out was extinguished at some point and could never be rekindled again. I pulled Eden's hand down and whispered, it's too late. There were water drops on the corners of Eden's eyes and eyebrows, his clothes were soaked, and his hair stuck to his face. The rain seemed to carry 1,000 pounds of weight, breaking all his pride layer by layer. He blinked. The water drops hit the ground with a plop. I don't know if it's rain. Still tears. 18. Half a year after returning to my hometown, my relationship with Carlo had not made any progress. We still get along very happily, but every time the topic of confirming a relationship comes up, I feel like I'm not ready yet. My last relationship was too painful for me. I'm a little scared. I went to look for Carlo that day, but I saw him packing his things. The suitcase stood aside and he was folding clothes. I don't know what I felt. I just felt my heart tighten up and my breathing became difficult. Are you leaving? I asked in surprise. Yeah. Carlo didn't look up. Why are you in such a hurry? When is the flight? It's 2 p.m. and I'll be leaving in a while. I stood there a little stiffly. Oh, I see. The room fell silent. I should say something, but I couldn't say anything. I stood there for a long time before I forced a smile and said, that's fine. The only thing that's nice here is the snow. There's nothing special about the summer. Carlo looked up at me and said, don't you have anything else to say? The fake smile on my face must have looked awful. Have a safe trip. What else? I couldn't help but feel the soreness in my nose, and lowered my head to hide it. Nothing. Carlo grinned and said, oh my, I'm going to cry. My eyes were full of bulges, but he leaned over and looked at me from below. Are you crying? Are you really crying? This person is simply sick. I really couldn't cry anymore, so I pushed him angrily. Are you sick? Carlo smiled, his eyes twitching. I know you can't bear to leave me. I'll be back the day after tomorrow morning. Don't forget to pick me up at the airport. I was surprised and asked, are you coming back? Nonsense. He rolled his eyes and wiped the tears from my eyes with one hand. I paid a year's rent. I subconsciously asked, what about after 1 year? Carlo stroked his chin and thought, after a year, I guess my mother won't ask her son-in-law for rent anymore. My face turned red and I reached out to hit him. Whose son-in-law are you? Carlo grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms. The smile on his face was no longer playful, and he gently lifted my face. In the ambiguous kiss, he said, wait until I come back. 19. The next time I received news from Eden was half a year later from a friend. Did you know that Eden was severely depressed? He swallowed a bottle of sleeping pills mixed with alcohol a few days ago. Fortunately, the assistant discovered it early and sent him to the hospital. He was saved by gastric lavage, she said carefully. I heard that he was still unconscious when he was sent to the hospital, and he seemed to be calling your name. I fell silent. Do you want to go see him? After hesitating for a while, I still refused. Our lives should have gone their separate ways a long time ago. For better or for worse, I don't want to have any contact with him anymore. But I didn't expect Eden to come to me. The snow falls very early in the north. It is only December, but the sky is already covered with snow. There is not much noise in the small town, and the snow is also quiet. Carlo and I were walking home after shopping in the supermarket when we saw a black figure standing next to a street lamp downstairs not far away, with a thick layer of snow covering his body. Eden just looked at us quietly, with a desolate look in his eyes. Cordelia. His voice fell into the snow, trembling slightly. I pushed Carlo and said, "You go back first, I'll go up later." Carlo frowned, then reluctantly said, "I'll give you 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes." After he left, Eden walked up to me. After not seeing him for nearly a year, he looked thinner and his eyes, which always seemed sharp, had dimmed. "What's up?" I asked him. He just stared at me, his eyes slowly turning red. He said hoarsely, "Cordelia, I can't let it go. What should I do?" "How did you let it go? Can you teach me?" I said calmly. "When it hurts enough, I'll let it go." Eden looked a little dazed, and he hunched his body slightly, as if these words had become a knife stabbing into his flesh. "We just missed it." His eyes were red. If I had understood it earlier, maybe we could. No. I shook my head and smiled bitterly. Eden, there has never been any missed opportunity between us. As long as I don't leave, you will never miss me. We are doomed, there will be no result. Eden's lips moved. He seemed to want to say something but couldn't. Watermarks flowed down the corners of his eyes, perhaps melted snow. I held his hand and sighed when I saw the fresh scars on his wrists. Eden, I used to think that if you love someone and can't get him her, the world will fall. But now I understand that this world can still function without anyone else. You'll let it go sooner or later. I looked at my watch and it was almost 5 minutes. Carlo is a petty guy. If you are late, he will be sarcastic. I turned and waved. Let's go, Eden. After walking a long way, I suddenly heard a heart-wrenching cry from behind. Cordelia, I can't let go. I can't let it go in my life. I kept walking. Hey Cordelia, I can't let go. I was taking off my shoes when Carlo leaned against the wall and spoke to me in a weird way, glancing at me from time to time. I pretended to be calm. My mom wants us to go eat dumplings later, do you want to go? He immediately forgot what had just happened. Go. 20. The news that the talented painter Carlo is going to hold an art exhibition has become a hot topic. My friend was so excited that he called me. Please, you know Carlo, right? Help me get a ticket. I like him so much. I went to Carlo, but he only gave me 1 ticket. No more, just for you. What's so great? I gritted my teeth in my heart, waited for the day of the exhibition, and went there honestly. I'd love to see what Carlo has painted in this little town. The name of the exhibition is Evangeline. What was a bit strange was that there was no one at the door. The exhibition hall was dark and I felt a little worried. Could it be that I remembered the time wrong? The next second, all the lights lit up at the same time. I stood there in a daze. In the exhibition hall, there are portraits of me, big and small, scattered around. Standing on the balcony drinking beer. Walking on the beach in a coat. Looking down with a red face and a silly smile. I never knew Carlo had painted so many portraits of me. I don't know how he remembered it, but the characters are so vivid and his gentle brushstrokes are full of love. Every scene after we met was recorded by him with his pencil. I walked back along the corridor and saw that the last painting was an oil painting. In the quiet night sky, 2 stars were nestled together, emitting soft light. I couldn't stop the soreness in my eyes as I looked at the person who walked out from behind the painting. Carlo smiled. Cordelia, will you be my Evangeline? My eyes turned red, but I couldn't help but smile. I started running, and I jumped in and threw myself into his arms. Extra Eden's perspective. My friends asked me what I liked about Jane, and I said she was simple, quiet, and looked safe. However, another person appeared in my mind. I waved the figure away. Cordelia's just a friend. We can only be friends. I actually didn't think Cordelia would leave. She has been with me for 12 years. How many 12 years can there be in a lifetime? From her birth till now, she has spent almost half of her life with me. We can't live without each other. I didn't expect that she would really leave. She said she was going back to her hometown and would not come back. I felt it was ridiculous. She's not coming back, what should I do? After hanging up the phone, I went to the balcony to smoke. Just go, he's just a friend. I have plenty of friends. However, I couldn't stop feeling panicky and couldn't light a fire for a long time. I don't think so, I have to go find her. I have to find out why she doesn't come back. I'm here, where can she go? It was only the moment I saw her that I suddenly realized that she was serious this time. I finally panicked. When I saw a new man next to her, I was furious. I had never been so angry before. I said something without thinking and she slapped me. She told me to get out. I'm leaving. After I got back, I found the Snoopy pajamas in the closet. I knew she bought them as a couple's pair, and I didn't say anything at the time, and I even wore them a few times occasionally. Every time she saw it, she was very happy, laughing secretly behind my back and taking pictures. Before leaving, she asked me to throw away my pajamas, but I don't know why I didn't and just put it in the closet. I took out the pajamas and just stared at it. I realized later that I had actually liked Cordelia for a long time. In fact, I am the one who depends on her more. It's just that subconsciously I feel that I shouldn't like her. I still remember what my mother told me before she died. Don't like someone too much because love can kill you. Love killed her. She spent her entire life on a man, and in the end she lost her life. I understand that liking this thing will disappear. Love is unreliable. No matter how much two people love each other, in the end, they can't escape from getting tired of each other, and even become enemies. Lovers will leave, and if he stays with Cordelia, she might get tired of him and fall in love with someone else. But friends won't. Friends can be together for a lifetime. I know Cordelia likes me, but I pretended that I knew nothing and kept deceiving myself using my friends. But I only realize now that she can also feel tired and in pain. She will leave too. I tried to win her back. I told her I had figured it out. I put aside my dignity and begged her. Cordelia loves me so much, how could she bear to make me sad? But she just smiled at me calmly. It's too late, she said. I know I have no chance. The love in Cordelia's eyes disappeared. That's nothing, right? If she can let it go, so can I. For a year, I didn't go to see her, I didn't read any news about her, and I pretended that this person didn't exist in my world. I eat alone, sleeping alone, live alone. I didn't think about her again. I thought I was fine, I let it go. Until one day, I suddenly started to suffer from insomnia. I can't sleep anymore. I started taking sleeping pills and later I started saving them up. After saving a bottle, I washed them down with alcohol. I didn't feel any pain. I just think it's meaningless. While I was unconscious, I dreamed of Cordelia. This is the first time I haven't dreamed of her since she left. It was snowing in the dream and it was very cold. She still looked like she was 17 years old. She put a red down jacket on me and said, "Eden, how come you can't take care of yourself at your age?" My tears suddenly fell and I held her hand tightly. Cordelia pulled her hand away little by little, and she began to grow up slowly, turning into an adult again. The smile on her face was a little tired, and she said to me, "Eden, I have to leave now. You have to take good care of yourself from now on." I burst into tears and begged her not to leave, but she just slowly pulled my hand off and turned away. I felt a suffocating pain in my chest, as if she had pulled my heart out and taken it away. I finally realized that I had never let go. I can never let it go.